Good day. Men and women have been serving in fire brigades for hundreds of years. I myself had the privilege in London during World War II. Of course, we faced quite a different order of business than you blokes in industry. Entire city falling down about our ears, that sort of thing. But many of the same principles apply in either situation. You must know the enemy, fire, know its nature, its dangers, and how it behaves. You must plan and train, and of course, for the sake of morale, you need the complete support of the officers, the managers, of course, in your case. Officers. The wartime was hell, of course, but there were some wonderful stories. A battalion in the tropics wired back to headquarters, "We have a case of Betty here. What should we do?" Came the answer, "Give it to the officers. They'll drink anything." Yes. Well, the thing to remember is, as a fire brigade member, you may need to extinguish fires, but you can be most effective by preventing them from happening in the first place. In the war, there was little we could do to stop the bombardment, but there's a great deal you can do to prevent your job from going up in smoke.
Fire in the workplace. Every day, on the average, there are more than 100 fires at factories, offices, stores, medical facilities, and other workplaces in the United States. Most of these are small and easily controlled. A few are major fires that cause millions of dollars in property damage and loss of jobs, even loss of life. A big fire can put people out of work for months or years, and some companies never reopen. But it's often possible to stop a fire at its early or incipient stage. More important, most fires can be prevented. These are the jobs of the incipient stage fire brigade. The responsibilities and training of a fire brigade will depend on the workplace and decisions by management. At a minimum, employers have to educate all employees to sound the alarm as soon as fire is discovered, and to evacuate the building as soon as the alarm is heard. At the other extreme, some industrial facilities may choose to maintain fully staffed structural fire brigades, equivalent in training and capabilities to a municipal fire department. The incipient stage fire brigade has intermediate responsibilities. Members are trained to respond to certain fire emergencies, maintain and monitor fire safety equipment, and carry out fire prevention activities. But they are not fully trained structural firefighters. It's critical for them to recognize that there's a point at which they must get out and leave the problem to the responding fire department. The incipient stage brigade may be organized in different ways, depending on the workplace. It'll typically consist of both plant and office personnel, each with responsibilities appropriate to their area and expertise. For example, a pipe fitter may be responsible for monitoring fire pumps during a fire emergency, and line managers may take the lead in implementing evacuation plans.
A good general prepares for battle by finding out everything he can about the enemy. He must learn the enemy's strengths, weaknesses, and plan of attack. Now, our enemy is fire. And in the same way, we must find out how it starts, where it will go, what it is likely to do. In short, exactly who the enemy is. A very important person was annoyed at the slow service from the steward at his club. "Do you know who I am?" he thundered at the man. "No," said the steward, "but I will make inquiries and then come and tell you." Yes. But the point is, fire. Yes, we must know exactly what it is. Now, for example, in London for a time, they concentrated the bombing on the docks. And there was all manner of material down there in the warehouses, all sorts of things burning. In fact, they set the River Thames itself on fire from time to time. Petrol, I believe it was, and various chemicals. But we knew how to fight it, you see, because we understood the nature of fire. Fire is a process that requires heat, fuel, oxygen, and to sustain itself, a chemical chain reaction. Interfere with any one of these, and you can interrupt the fire.
A fire is sustained when a chemical chain reaction takes place that helps fuel molecules to break down and burn. Solid and liquid fuels are driven by heat to vaporize, and it is these vapors that burn, not the solids or liquids themselves. Air is the most likely source of oxygen, which may also be supplied by chemicals called oxidizers. In the workplace, the heat needed for ignition may be provided by friction, sparks, electrical resistance, arcing or open flames from process equipment, welding or cutting operations, and from the careless use of smoking materials. Heat will spread from its source in several ways. Conduction is the transfer of heat through solid material. Convection is the transfer of heat through a circulating medium, either gas or liquid. Convection in air tends to go upward as the heated air expands and rises. Radiation transfers heat through space by means of electromagnetic waves and is capable of igniting materials distant from the heat source. Flame spreads upward, buoyed by hot air, igniting whatever fuel source it encounters. It may also travel horizontally, feeding on available fuel, and may travel through concealed spaces in floors and walls. The fire may smolder for a time and then erupt suddenly in a backdraft or flashover. In a flashover, heat from a fire causes combustible materials to emit fuel vapors, and at a certain point, all the vapors burst into flame. A backdraft is also a sudden intensification when oxygen is admitted to a smoldering fire, for example, when a door is opened. However, smoke, not flame, is the big killer in a fire. Smoke makes it hard to see, interferes with muscular coordination and reasoning ability, and causes asphyxiation and death. Because of the many toxic compounds and diverse chemicals used in manufacturing, smoke from a workplace fire may be particularly dangerous. Hot smoke rises and collects against ceilings and walls. The most breathable air is usually nearest the floor. The buoyant smoke will follow the path of least resistance, moving quickly and reaching people distant from the fire. This is why the response to fire incidents must be rapid and well planned. Incipient brigade members have to know the tools of the trade, from extinguishers to centralized alarm systems. The most important of these is the fire alarm. In many workplaces, the main alarm is a local pull station, which sounds an alarm in the immediate area. Transmission of the alarm is a critical responsibility of the incipient brigade. This may simply involve a call to the fire station, or a centralized system may transmit the call directly to the station or to an alarm facility. Sometimes the alarm is sounded automatically by a smoke detector at the fire scene, or by heat or flame detectors, or the sprinkler alarm system. Even when the alarm is automatically transmitted, a follow-up call must be made to the fire department for absolute verification and to pass on additional information about fire location and severity. If a fire has started and is still small enough to control, incipient brigade members may fight it with portable extinguishers and hose lines. The nature of fire is a guide to extinguishing it by removing fuel, heat, oxygen, or interfering with the chemical chain reaction that sustains it. Different portable extinguishers may accomplish these objectives depending on the kind of fire. Fires and extinguishers are classified as A, B, C, or D. Class A fires and ordinary combustibles are best fought with water, which removes heat from the fire equation. Class B fires are those in flammable liquids, hazardous materials which cause intense and dangerous fires. These may be fought with carbon dioxide or foam, which can smother the fire, and dry chemicals or halon, which interfere with the chemical chain reaction. Class C fires in energized electrical equipment present shock hazards. Incipient brigade members should not fight these fires with water or water-based compounds. CO2 is the preferred agent. Sometimes the power can be turned off, making it no longer a Class C fire. But be sure the power really is off before taking action. Class D fires occur in combustible metals such as magnesium. Extinguishing action is by a dry powder compound that covers the metal and isolates it from oxygen. Do not fight a Class D fire with carbon dioxide. The burning metal may be hot enough to break down the extinguishing agent, releasing oxygen and greatly intensifying the fire.
And this also dates from the war years. It's an old-fashioned soda acid extinguisher, the kind you turn over to activate. It's not charged, of course. I wouldn't have it in the building, and you shouldn't either. You see how it's made of brass? That's the key in identifying this hazard. If activated, it could burst. And never mind the fire, they'd have you in hospital picking pieces of extinguisher out of you. Safety first. Remove outdated extinguishers or any that have been damaged. And be careful when you're using those hose lines, too.
Many facilities have fire protection water systems, which can be used for hose line attack, like standpipes, and yard hydrants, which are connected to municipal or company water supplies. There are different types of hoses and nozzles, but present regulations specify lined hose and adjustable nozzles. Incipient stage fire brigades are limited to 1.5-inch hose lines and smaller. If the fire requires a larger hose line, it's too big for an incipient stage brigade to fight. Water from hose lines is intended primarily for use on Class A fires, ordinary combustible. Using an adjustable nozzle gives a straight stream, which projects a maximum distance and penetrates burning materials, or a spray or fog pattern, which rapidly absorbs large quantities of heat and will cool the environment. Your workplace may also have a time-honored fire protection device, the automatic sprinkler system. Automatic sprinklers extinguish fires by cooling them with water. Heat from the fire operates one or more sprinkler heads, releasing water automatically. Since their introduction in the late 19th century, sprinkler systems have saved billions of dollars and countless lives. However, due to human error, there have also been major fire losses in totally sprinklered buildings. Typically, these have occurred when valves controlling sprinklers were shut down because of a leak or required maintenance, and left shut until the fire occurred, leaving the building unprotected. Losses have also occurred during fires when the sprinkler system has been shut down prematurely, allowing the fire to take control again. Brigade members must be familiar with sprinkler system operation, know valve positions, and be able to spot potential problems. If a fire occurs, brigade members will need certain equipment readily available. To begin with, they'll need whatever industrial protection is commonly required in an area, such as eye protection around chemicals or self-contained breathing apparatus in hazardous atmospheres. Fire ground ladders are another important piece of firefighting equipment. Different types give the brigade rapid access to difficult areas. But these apparently everyday items can be dangerous if not properly maintained, and brigade members need to be trained in their safe use. Common brigade hand tools include axes, pry bars, forcible entry tools, bolt cutters, and pike poles. Portable generators, lights, and firefighting carts provide essential services in industrial fires. The incipient stage fire brigade is a vital force for the preservation of workplace safety, property, and jobs. Brigade members work as a team and help all employees to prevent fires from starting. If a fire does occur, the brigade may effectively control it at its early or incipient stage. To do this, it's necessary to understand the nature of fire, be familiar with fire protection equipment and systems and use them appropriately, and above all, to pay close attention to your own personal safety.
Yes. Well then, to your duties. In peacetime, the Industrial Brigade has a number of very important duties. Unfortunately, very few of them have anything to do with actually fighting a fire. After all, you are an incipient stage brigade. You're not equipped to fight a big fire, so you'll jolly well do your best to make sure one doesn't happen. Depending on the time you have available, your duties will probably include some degree of recognizing fire hazards, inspections, and maintenance. The whole idea is to think ahead. Think ahead. Oh. It seems there was a highway accident, and the police were questioning a witness. How far away were you? 54 feet, 17 inches. Did you measure it? Yes, I did. Why did you do that? Because I knew some bloody fool would ask me. Well, yes. You see, in wartime London, we had to think ahead. We appointed thousands of fire watchers all about the city. Students, housewives, retired people. When incendiary bombs came down on their buildings, the fire watchers rushed out and extinguished the fires with buckets of water and sand. They were alert, you see, and prepared. And if you are too, you can prevent many fires from even beginning.
Industrial accidents and fires occur because of hazardous conditions and unsafe acts. By remaining constantly alert for these, members of the incipient stage brigade can make an important contribution to workplace safety. In the aftermath of a fire, investigators will commonly classify the incident by the source of ignition. This may be an electrical short circuit, arcing, which may occur when wiring or insulation deteriorates from heat or wear, sparks from welding or cutting operations, heat from friction generated by misaligned or poorly adjusted belts, pulleys, or bearings, malfunctioning fuel-fired process equipment or heating systems, and careless disposal of smoking materials. However, not all fires are accidental. Arson and incendiarism are the causes of some workplace fires. In the workplace, there are many sources of fuel. Under the right conditions, almost anything can be made to burn, such as the aluminum shavings created here. Typical solid fuel fire hazards include trash and industrial waste, which must be stored in the proper containers, and oily materials, which may be ignited by either external heat sources or spontaneous combustion. Flammable liquids, even in small quantities, release dangerous vapors which can be ignited by something as ordinary as static electricity. Prevent this by using safety cans and always bonding the containers when transferring flammable liquids. In a flammable liquids atmosphere, classified electrical equipment will help prevent accidental ignition. Flammable gases such as acetylene and liquefied petroleum gas are safe when properly handled by qualified personnel. Hazards to watch for include damaged containers or regulators, and the proximity of heat, sparks, or other sources of ignition. Oxygen is not a fuel gas, but it is found in many industrial and medical settings. An oxygen leak may intensify a fire or make a fire hazard out of otherwise non-combustible material. Oxidizing materials such as bromates or nitrates may present the same kind of hazard. The rupture of other process lines within a plant may release liquids or gases with the potential to cause fires or injuries. Brigade members should be aware of these potential hazards as well. Hazardous materials present a special class of problems. There are thousands of them in everyday use. They can catch fire, explode, cause serious injury, even death. Brigade members should be aware of any hazardous materials in the workplace so that they know which fires they are unable to fight and can inform the fire department of existing hazards. In case of a fire emergency, blocked doors or inadequate exit signs are hazards to life safety. Brigade members need to recognize that these potential hazards are just as critical as flammable liquids or unsafe welding practices. In the same way, in a fire, nobody should have to leap over a pile of cartons to reach an extinguisher. And the extinguisher should be fully charged and in working order if it is needed. Unsafe acts are another major cause of fires. All of us are careless from time to time, But since it's everybody's responsibility to prevent fires, it may fall to you to point out an unsafe act to a fellow worker. This can feel awkward, like something you just as soon avoid.
Spotting fire hazards requires a sharp eye. Of course, under the right circumstances, or I should say the wrong circumstances, almost anything will burn. In London, during the worst of it, we had brandy and cigars on fire at Waterloo Station, butter and York hams by Tower Bridge, kangaroo skeletons at the Royal Museum, shoes, doilies, and gin. And down by the docks, we had the river itself on fire, of course, as well as suffocating paint fires and burning rum and wheat. The burned wheat made a sticky mess that pulled my boots off. Dreadful stuff. But in industry, you have your share of problems too. A minor fire in a flammable liquid storage area, or for that matter, in a pile of packing material, can very quickly get beyond your ability to handle it. So, having understood the nature of fire hazards, you must apply this knowledge methodically to your workplace. And fire inspection is one good way to start.
Workplace inspections will be conducted on a scheduled or a regular basis by state, county, and municipal fire officials and insurance company personnel. It's in their interest to make sure that fire protection systems are operational, fire hazards are properly handled and protected, and exits are marked, illuminated, and clear. However, they will not be able to conduct inspections as frequently as necessary. Fire safety inspections have to be regular and methodical. A single overlooked hazard can lead to the destruction of the entire plant. Therefore, most companies will develop their own internal inspection procedure. The plant fire protection specialist and safety personnel will draw up inspection forms and schedule inspections of the entire plant on a regular basis. By involving brigade personnel in fire inspections, they will become more familiar with the facility, different processes, fire protection, and common fire hazards, and will be better able to assist other employees during an evacuation. Brigade members need to know how alarms, sprinklers, and other automatic fire protection systems work. They should be able to spot a closed control valve on the sprinkler system, which can mean no sprinkler protection, or a sprinkler head which would be ineffective in case of fire. However, inspection should be done by trained personnel. Safety first applies to fire inspections too. Any required personal protective equipment must be worn when inspecting hazardous areas of the plant. In older buildings, attics and basements may present hazards of falling, electrical shock, open drains, low clearances, and pockets of flammable gas. When inspection must be done close to a machine, shut it down and make sure it stays shut down until the inspection is completed. All fire protection equipment needs maintenance. Automatic systems like sprinklers and alarms have to be maintained by experts. But brigade members have responsibilities during system impairments. In a scheduled impairment, an automatic system is shut down, usually for repairs. Unscheduled or emergency impairments may occur at any time. For example, somebody may accidentally break off a sprinkler head, and the system has to be shut down until the head is replaced. Brigade members can provide a high degree of temporary protection during any system impairments. Beyond this, brigade members should take responsibility for the basic maintenance of extinguishers, standpipe and hydrant hoses, and brigade equipment, because in a fire, their lives could depend on it. Portable fire extinguishers should be checked once a month, more frequently in extreme conditions of heat or corrosive atmosphere. Check gauges for adequate pressure. Inspect for evidence of tampering or damage, and lift the extinguisher from its bracket to ensure that the extinguisher can be easily removed. Extinguishers should be maintained by qualified personnel once a year or whenever they're discharged. Check maintenance tags to make sure the schedule is being followed. Standpipe and hydrant hoses can deteriorate over time. A cracked or frayed hose might rupture when charged with water. Check hoses monthly for any obvious damage, and pull them once a year, inspecting for chafing, mildew, or burning from heat or chemicals. Also, check for dirt and frozen couplings and valves. In addition, the hose must periodically pass a hydrostatic test, administered by qualified personnel. Salvage covers, when properly maintained, can prevent thousands of dollars in water damage. Unfold them on a regular basis and air until completely dry to prevent mildew. Any holes have to be securely patched. Start up portable generators at least once a month, more frequently in wet environments. Make sure all batteries are fully charged. A maintenance log is a good way to keep track of hours of operation, tests, and repairs.
Where was I? Oh, it seems there was a sea captain, and every time the ship put to sea, he was observed to open his safe, take out a black book, examine it, put it back, and lock the safe. Of course, the other officers were very curious. One day, the old man died and was buried at sea, and the first mate took the key and opened the safe. There was only one entry in the black book: left, port, right, starboard. Well, a certain amount of training and preparation is necessary for any task, and you may be required at any time to respond to an actual fire. One good way to prepare is to invite your local fire department, fire academy, or fire safety specialist to help train you on fire extinguishers and hose lines. There's a very definite technique involved here, as you can see. And while you can't hope to master it at a professional level, at least you should know what it feels like to handle a hose or extinguisher. Good form there. And of course, the other matter of training is physical fitness. One can't be too fit, even at my age. I do 50 of these each day and take a small trot round the park. You'd be well advised to undertake a lot more, because a fire emergency can be very demanding, full of high stress and hard work. Make sure you're medically fit, too. Get a regular checkup. Whew. Well, that's enough for now. Now, we come to the pre-fire plan. Of course, we didn't have that luxury in London. Our plan consisted of how many pumps can we divert to Paddington before Knightsbridge turns into a conflagration. But of course, it's not a luxury, really. It's a necessity. Consider these scenarios. That's your tool in pre-fire planning, the scenario. Scenario 1, a small fire in some packing material. An employee smells smoke, runs to find a supervisor. They come back. Oh, yes, it is a fire. They run to find extinguishers, make a stab at it, and only then does somebody in the front office think to call the fire department, which responds promptly but requires 7 minutes to get there. The result? A total loss. Now, if these people had taken the time to develop a pre-fire plan, working in conjunction with the fire department, then you would have scenario 2. A small fire in some packing material, an employee smells smoke, and without further consideration pulls the nearest alarm box. Hitting the alarm, a designated brigade member calls the fire department, which gets there in 7 minutes. The result? Professional firefighters control the fire, and the damage is confined to one section of the warehouse. Need I say more?
The purpose of the pre-fire plan is to learn as much as possible about a fire before it occurs. In planning sessions, brigade members discuss different fire scenarios based on their knowledge of the workplace. The most comprehensive pre-fire plans are developed in cooperation with local fire officials. Prior to the meeting, brigade members have taken some time to collect data about their assigned areas of the plant. They have determined information about the building, how it is built, how it is divided, and whether there are doors, windows, and vertical shafts. Information about manufacturing processes, with special attention to heat, fuels, and built-in protection systems. Information on hazardous materials. Information about how to control utilities, shutting them off as necessary to limit fire and water damage, and information about life safety, firefighting equipment, and protection systems. They've also surveyed the facility to establish priorities for salvage operations. Now, in their pre-fire planning meeting, they discuss the different scenarios, possible ways a fire could occur and spread, how safety can be ensured, and how the fire can be controlled. Pre-fire planning is an exercise in what-if thinking. Brigade members combine their imagination and knowledge of the plant and anticipate as many possible situations as they can. Based on these scenarios, a pre-fire plan is drafted. The next step is to test out the effectiveness of the plan in local drills. Fire drills are essential, not only for brigade members, but for all employees. After the local drills, the brigade meets again to iron out any problems in the plan. The company has to have a written plan that provides for safe, orderly evacuation of the building in case of fire. And brigade members are crucial here as well, assisting and directing people, and taking appropriate actions to ensure safety and calm. The incipient stage brigade's most important contribution can be in preventing fires from ever occurring by recognizing fire hazards throughout the workplace and minimizing them, and by participating in regular fire inspections. Other non-emergency responsibilities include basic maintenance of fire protection and brigade equipment, training with fire extinguishers and hose lines, developing a comprehensive pre-fire plan and testing it in local drills, and helping to coordinate the whole facility drills that, in case of a fire emergency, will bring employees to safety.
As we've seen, the work of the incipient stage fire brigade is mostly preparation, planning, inspection, and drills. But now, suppose an actual fire does strike. Statistically, most workplace fires are small ones. And statistically, do you know the definition of a statistician? A statistician is a person who can lie down with his feet in the oven and his head in the refrigerator and say that on the whole, he feels normal. Yes. Now, most of these workplace fires are small ones, as I say. And since you're a fire brigade, the temptation might be to jump right on it and put it out. But I'm afraid the whole situation is more complex. Now, take this example. An employee led firefighters to a small fire in this plastics factory. He was then told to leave, but never seen alive again. Or this one. In a warehouse fire, 3 brigade members were killed when they were trapped by bales of tissue that collapsed as they became soaked with water. The point is, in an actual fire emergency, you must provide for your own safety. You do nobody any good if you're injured or dead. What I have always done when confronted by an emergency, no matter how urgent, is to stop for a moment and make a self-inventory. Is what I'm about to do essential? Is it worth the risk? What is the safest way to do it? Am I prepared? Not only are these important questions which need to be answered, the process of asking them gives me a moment to calm and orient myself. On several occasions, I believe this self-inventory has saved my life.
A fire is a deadly environment of smoke, flame, toxic gases, lethal electrical shock, rooms that burst into flame, and buildings that collapse. To help others and remain safe, brigade members must know all about these hazards. Smoke and products of combustion are the major killers in a fire. Smoke inhalation will interfere with coordination and reasoning ability before causing unconsciousness and death. The best defense against smoke is to get away from it. If caught by smoke, crawl low. The air will be better closer to the ground. In a fire, electricity can kill quickly and unexpectedly. The fire may disrupt normal protective systems, and the decreased visibility and presence of water make contact with electricity more likely. Industrial processes may involve high-pressure steam, flammable liquids, and gases, some held above their auto-ignition points, and other hazardous materials. In a fire emergency, it's critical to know about these hazards. There are many different possible explosion hazards in industry. Brigade members have to identify these during pre-planning. If fire appears to be moving toward an explosion hazard, brigade members should evacuate immediately. Firefighters have to be alert to the dangers of flashovers or backdrafts. Fire may smolder for a time and then erupt suddenly in a backdraft or flashover when oxygen is admitted, or a room full of fuel vapors ignites all at once. Often the spread of fire will be concealed until it bursts into an adjoining room. Firefighters also have to beware of confined spaces where smoke or flammable vapors may collect, and man-traps such as open pits that can cause injury and prevent escape. One of the most dangerous events that can occur during or after a fire is structural collapse. Many firefighters have been killed by collapsing floors or walls. If a structural element is involved in flame, this is not a fire for an incipient stage brigade. And at the first indication of rumbling sounds, bulging or distorting walls, glowing steel, large cracks, smoke coming through the walls or sagging floors, all firefighters must get out. These hazards illustrate how important it is for brigade members to withdraw if a fire cannot be quickly controlled with hand extinguishers or an 1.5-inch hose line. As soon as a fire is discovered, sound the alarm. As soon as the alarm is heard, it is essential to begin evacuation. Several other duties are often performed at the same time. For example, size-up and control of utilities are simultaneously performed by other brigade members. After the initial alarm, the incipient brigade must immediately make sure that it's transmitted to the responding structural firefighting company. Alarm systems may do this automatically. Nonetheless, a brigade member should follow up with a call giving more information. The alarm is the signal for other brigade members to begin evacuating the building according to the pre-fire plan. They may work as floor wardens, coordinating the evacuation, or as searchers, checking washrooms and out-of-the-way places to make sure nobody is left behind. If an employee has become disabled, brigade members may use the clothes drag. Reach both hands under the victim's shoulder blades, grab hold of his clothing, and drag him away from danger, cradling his head between your forearms. The clothes drag is a valuable evacuation method because it limits the victim's body motion, minimizing any further injury, and it keeps both parties low to the ground below the smoke. If a victim is on fire, wrap him in a blanket or other covering to smother the flames. If no covering is available, help the victim roll over and over on the floor, hands covering face until the fire is extinguished. A victim may be in contact with electrical power. Contact with him could kill you. In such situations, be sure that the power is off before moving in to assist. In any situation in which you may be endangered, leave the rescue attempts to professional firefighters. In a fire emergency, brigade members may need to give medical assistance. Emergency medical training, a knowledge of first aid and CPR is an invaluable asset. As the evacuation proceeds, brigade members account for groups of employees at the designated meeting place. Regularly scheduled evacuation drills will help ensure that an actual emergency evacuation is a prompt and orderly process.
Now, the size-up is clearly a military sort of a maneuver. Now, in the military terms we have been pursuing, there is intelligence gathering as we learn the nature of the enemy, namely fire. And then the terrain is studied. We determine how fire may spread, what hazards exist. And now the enemy is upon us. And at the critical moment, excuse me. I must confess, I always found this size-up to have an inspiring quality to it. Besides the certain amount of fear it inspires, that is, you have only moments to evaluate the situation, the risks to yourselves, to others, and to property, to ascertain just what's going on. Oh, we had some size-ups in London. Down in the Surrey docks, there were acres of warehouses ablaze, and you never knew what was in them. That was the rub. Oh, there was a rubber fire, black smoke so choking we could only fight it from a distance. In another, sugar was burning, and it melted, spread out over the water, continued to burn. Burning tea made a very intense fire, and it was quite odd for an Englishman to be pouring cold water on hot tea leaves, as you can imagine. And there was one warehouse. We staggered back. It was like being attacked by flies. Our lungs felt ablaze. It was a pepper fire. There was a size up for you. Get upwind, man. The whole place is burning up bloody pepper. Well, yes, that was wartime. But you'll be more conservative in sizing up the fire. Remember, you're only an incipient stage brigade. Is the fire more than incipient? Is it really underway? Then don't attempt to fight it. Do your self-inventory. Is this essential? Is it worth the risk? Am I prepared? If the answers are not all yes, then leave the fire to professional firefighters and shut the doors behind you as you go.
Although size-up is ideally the job of the first arriving officer, any brigade member who is first at the scene may have the responsibility. The first critical decision is, can the fire be fought by the incipient stage brigade? If the decision is no, if the fire is too big or well established, the size-up continues. Brigade members get as much information as they can while ensuring their personal safety. They transmit the location and extent of the fire, initiating an ongoing decision-making process. How effective this process is will depend on the thoroughness of the pre-fire planning. The plan has to quickly reveal information about structures. Is the fire in a building? What's the building made of? People. How many workers in the area? What's their evacuation plan? Hazards to life. Could the fire involve chemical process equipment, high pressures, hazardous materials? Property value. Can highly valued records, information, or equipment be saved? Firefighting equipment. What's available? Which personnel know how to use it? And fire service response. How long will it take the fire department to get there? Where will they arrive? What's their pre-fire plan? In the minutes following the alarm, all of these conditions can vary and change. Therefore, size-up must be an ongoing system of decision-making, responsive to any rapidly developing emergency. While the alarm is being transmitted and evacuation and size-up are taking place, other brigade members take control of the building's utilities. A fire emergency is no time to start looking for the utility controls. These procedures must be planned and practiced beforehand. The flow of electrical current into the building is large and dangerous to firefighting operations. A brigade member qualified to operate breakers and fuse panels shuts down appropriate machines and equipment. Lights, fire pumps, and some processes remain on. Another brigade member goes to fuel valves and shuts down the supply of flammable liquids and gases into the fire area, as well as any oxygen. Fans, vents, air conditioning systems, and dust removal systems all have to be controlled. They can spread smoke and toxic gases to distant areas, endangering others. In chemical process units, process control may be the most critical aspect of firefighting. Changes in flow rate, temperature, or pressure may intensify the fire or cause new problems elsewhere. Brigade members must not change the status of any valves or switches without direction from the head process operator. If the facility has a fire pump, a brigade member should report to the pump house. If the pump has not started, manually start it to help guarantee maximum water flow and pressure. One brigade member goes immediately to the sprinkler control valve to make sure water is supplied to the sprinklers and remains there if it is safe to do so. He will supervise the system while the fire is extinguished. The first arriving fire company is met by the incipient stage fire brigade. The fire department officer assumes overall command of operations. Brigade members continue to play critical roles in the incident. They can direct the fire department to the scene, identify utility and electrical controls, provide an efficient communications network, identify hazardous materials and processes, and assist in firefighting. Sometimes the answer to the question, can we fight the fire, is yes. For example, a small fire in a container may simply be covered, depriving it of oxygen and extinguishing it. Or the fire may be fought with hose line or extinguisher by brigade members trained in fire suppression technique. The decision to fight the fire must never be irrevocable. Always leave an escape route. If the fire spreads, grows, or proves hard to control, abandon the effort and leave the scene. The best way to learn fire suppression technique is by training on real fires with hose lines and extinguishers. Fireground training may be available from larger factories, local fire departments, or nearby fire academies. A hose line attack with water is the classic firefighting method, but it may be harder than it looks. The water jets from the nozzle under pressure, and it can be hard to control. A nozzle out of control can injure or kill personnel. A spray stream will cool the environment and rapidly absorb large amounts of heat. It may be used to approach a small fire to a safe distance. The angle of the spray pattern can then be narrowed and the stream applied starting at the base of the fire. The object is to soak the burning materials without scattering them and spreading the fire. A straight stream provides much greater reach and can penetrate burning materials effectively. However, the force of the stream may scatter the burning materials if not properly applied. A portable fire extinguisher is one of the most useful pieces of equipment for fighting an incipient stage fire, provided you have the right extinguisher and know how to use it. Classroom training and studying manuals are important. However, there is no substitute for hands-on training with the extinguisher you may need to use. Learn about their safety features, spray patterns, and how long their discharge lasts.
Okay. So
remember, if the heat is too intense to approach within range, the fire is too big to be fought with a portable extinguisher. Most important, any fire may reignite after it seems to be extinguished, so remain alert. Water extinguishers for Class A fires and ordinary combustibles may be either hand-pumped or stored pressure. To use either extinguisher, aim the stream at the base of the fire and sweep from side to side. Class B fires and flammable liquids may be fought with either carbon dioxide, dry chemical, halon, or foam extinguishers. Apply the carbon dioxide as close to the burning surface as possible. With an open container, allow it to blanket the surface. However, reignition can be a problem when a deep pool of flammable liquid has stored heat. Dry chemical extinguishers are usually rated type B, C. Some are also rated for type A, but they are not as effective as plain water for fire and ordinary combustibles. Learn whether your dry chemical extinguishers are cartridge-operated or stored pressure, and just what the discharge procedure is. Apply the dry chemical with a fast side-to-side sweeping motion, covering the entire area to break up the chemical chain reaction and extinguish the fire. Halon extinguishers are also effective on flammable liquid and electrical fires, and may be used with some success on ordinary combustibles. They have the advantage over dry chemicals of not leaving potentially damaging chemicals on equipment. However, the halon gas and decomposition products may be toxic if inhaled. This is of particular concern in enclosed areas. Be alert for reignition when either dry chemical or halon extinguishers are used. Foam extinguishers may be used on ordinary combustibles, but are more often used for extinguishing flammable liquid fires. Foam should be applied carefully with the objective of blanketing the fuel and thereby smothering the fire. Once the fire has been extinguished, the foam blanket prevents reignition by inhibiting the release of flammable vapors. Class C fires in energized electrical equipment may be extinguished by carbon dioxide extinguishers, as it is being done here, or by halon or dry chemical extinguishers. Fires in combustible metals, Class D, require special extinguishers, techniques, and precautions. The extinguisher is cartridge-operated and uses a dry powder. When using a dry powder extinguisher, begin from its maximum range with the nozzle wide open and partially close the nozzle as you approach. It is also possible to effectively extinguish a combustible metal fire by scooping the special dry powder from a bucket and carefully spreading it over the fire. Although in this demonstration the metal is not actually burning, the concept is the same. The dry powder compound must always completely cover the metal with a thick coat to result in extinguishment. Two important precautions. If the combustible metal is a dust or powder, make sure the extinguishing action does not create a dust cloud, a possible explosion hazard. The use of extinguishers rated for Class A, B, or C fires will not be effective on Class D fires and may create extremely dangerous situations. Due to the difficulty of extinguishing these fires, other brigade members should stand by as backup. When a fire is fed by a flow of gas or liquid fuel, it may be possible to extinguish it by shutting off a valve. Do not fight the fire before shutting off the fuel. The continuing flow of fuel can create a hazard that is worse than the original problem. Fires involving flammable liquids, gases, or any other hazardous material present grave dangers and may rapidly escalate into major incidents. Brigade members must exercise extreme caution and consider withdrawing if the fire may involve any hazardous materials. Attack with hose lines or extinguishers at the fire scene is important. Supervision of the automatic sprinkler system is also essential to fire suppression. The responding brigade member checks the water flow, the integrity of seals or locks. The main valve is unlocked and tried to make sure it is fully opened. All this information is then radioed or otherwise relayed to the brigade leader. Brigade members may extinguish the fire at the scene before it sets off the sprinklers. If the sprinklers do operate, however, supervision of the system becomes very important. For example, the sprinklers may extinguish the fire, and the sprinkler control valve can then be shut to prevent unnecessary water damage. However, the valve, once closed, must be supervised continually. The fire could reignite, and a brigade member must be on hand to reopen the valve at once. The valve must be supervised until the operating sprinkler heads are replaced, at which point the valve can be reopened and the capability of the system restored. The first responsibility of the incipient stage fire brigade is life safety for themselves and other employees. Properly trained brigade members may attempt to fight a fire if it is small enough. If it is safe and personnel are available, the incipient stage brigade can then begin protection of property. The fire officer in charge will determine if it is safe to undertake salvage operations while firefighting is still going on. Valuable machinery below the fire floor may be protected using salvage covers. Even after the fire is extinguished, the work goes on. Water and debris may have to be cleaned up. The building may need to be sealed against the elements and equipment restored. Whatever it takes to get your job up and running again. The incipient stage fire brigade is made up of employees and managers who are organized to prevent workplace fires from occurring and to fight fires at their beginning or incipient stage. Brigade members have to be familiar with the operation and basic maintenance of fire protection equipment, alarms, portable extinguishers, hose lines, sprinkler systems, and ladders, axes, and hand tools. They must recognize any fire hazards that occur in their workplace, whether causes of ignition, sources of fuel, or unsafe acts by other employees, and help minimize or eliminate these hazards. The incipient stage brigade will develop a comprehensive pre-fire plan based on an in-depth knowledge of the workplace and a thorough consideration of different fire scenarios that might occur. The pre-fire plan has to be tested in local drills and in full-scale evacuation drills involving the whole facility. If a fire actually occurs, brigade members will make sure the alarm is transmitted to the fire department, assist in the evacuation of employees, do an initial size-up of the fire, and control building utilities. With proper training, they may attempt to extinguish small fires. Brigade members will assist the fire department as requested and protect property and conduct salvage operations when it is safe to do so. The incipient stage fire brigade has an intermediate level of fire control responsibility. Although they are not fully trained structural firefighters, brigade members provide important fire prevention services and quick and valuable response if a fire emergency occurs.
Well, my friends, there you have it. Fire is a killer, and it consumes property and jobs, but you can stop it. As members of an incipient stage fire brigade, you provide a first line of defense. Those crucial first moments when fire strikes, your front line actions of alarm and evacuation and size up gain time, save lives, and collect important information. Of course, you must know the enemy. You must understand how it moves and spreads, the dangers it presents. You must know the very nature of fire. It is a process involving heat, fuel, oxygen, a chemical chain reaction. Remove any of these and you can extinguish the fire. But then you must understand your own nature too. Recognize your limitations. Safety first. Help others, but take care of yourself as well. Perform that self-inventory. And if the fire looks too big to fight, then leave it alone. After all, you are an incipient stage brigade. You don't want to have to deal with fire if you can help it. That's why, when all is said and done, prevention is your most important important responsibility. The best thing you can do to save your job from burning. Very good. Well, then I suppose that about finishes it. There was one last thing. What was it? Well, I'm sure I'll remember it. Oh, yes. It seems there was a major fire at a big industrial plant, and it soon became apparent the local fire department could not control it, so they backed off, setting out master streams as they went, and called in mutual aid from the surrounding towns. Well, the first company to respond was this old truck with 8 firefighters hanging off it, and they came roaring up, crashed through the gate, crashed into the building. Everybody leaped off, and within 10 minutes they had the fire put out. The owner of the company was so impressed with their reckless daring and skill that on the spot he told them, "I'm giving you blokes a £10,000 reward. What do you think you'll do with all that money?" "Well, mate, I'll tell you," said the driver. "The very first thing is to get a new set of brakes for the bloody truck." But, quite so. Well, marvellous business. I must be going. Take care of yourselves. Cheerio.